Good evening. Call to order the rescheduled regular meeting of the Board of Education for March 10th, 2022. Will everyone please rise for the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A reading of our mission statement. We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. May I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I would also like to note this evening that we are celebrating Women's History Month. The month of March has been designated by presidential proclamation to honor women's contributions to American history. The 2022 theme is Women Providing Healing, Promoting Hope. This theme, according to the National Women's History Alliance, is both a tribute to the ceaseless work of caregivers and frontline workers during this ongoing pandemic, and also a recognition of the thousands of ways that women of all cultures have provided both healing and hope throughout history. So just take a moment to visit the website. I know there's a lot of stuff that's going on there for the entire month for Women's History Month. I'm now going to move on and turn it over to Mrs. Pact, who is going to introduce our high school drama club for a presentation of James and the Giant Peach.
And we're going to come down first.
Yes.
Oh.
We're going to go down here.
Hello, my name is Faye Pact. I am the new theater teacher at Monroe Woodbury High School, and I am the director of the Spring Musical. This year, the Monroe Woodbury High School Drama Club presents Roald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach. It'll be taking place March 24th to 26th in the Monroe Woodbury High School auditorium. You can get your tickets or show merchandise at our.show/MWHSDC/52225. Or look on the website. The number that our drama club students are going to be presenting tonight is Have You Ever Begun to Wonder? This number opens Act 2. While floating along on the ocean on a giant peach, the insects give James an inside look to the world as they know it. And our performers tonight are Kylie McCarran, Joe Garrow, Jonah Jaramillo, Tyler Landusky, James Dawson, Jacob Ciriello, Daniel Solano, Victoria Lopez, Olivia Theokis, Rebecca Cruz, and Caden Manson. Thank you very much, and we hope we see you at the show.
Close.
Good. So that's good energy.
I know, so good.
That was great.
So good. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming this evening and for coming on a rescheduled night. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing the show. A couple of housekeeping notes. I just want to mention that due to the change this evening, Mr. Ciriello and Mr. Anderson were unable to make it tonight, so they are just not here, and our student board representative should be here shortly. He's just running a little bit late. But thank you so much, Mrs. Pact, and we look forward to seeing you. For everybody else that needs to, go visit the website, and you can see information on how to get tickets for the performance. Moving on, questions and comments from interested citizens. I believe we have one person this evening, Lorraine Loaning, who will be speaking on behalf of herself about Sunshine Week. Mrs. Loaning? It is, excuse me.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Lorraine Loaning. I am a district resident. Next week, March 13th through 19th, is Sunshine Week, and it includes March 16th, Freedom of Information Day. Sunshine Week is a riff on the old adage that sunshine is the best disinfectant. This is an annual celebration of open government, transparency, and the right of citizens to have access to public information. This includes contracts, invoices, emails, text messages, other correspondence, calendars, just to name a few. Access to public information is a hallmark of a thriving democracy. In my experience, governments love to spout open government rhetoric until they are on the receiving end of some uncomfortable questions. I am asking this board to do two things to celebrate Sunshine Week. One, I am calling on this district to direct all instructors of U.S. government classes to spend some time teaching students how to appropriately challenge and stay informed about their government's decisions. Spend some time teaching students how to retrieve information from governments, how to fill out a Freedom of Information request, have them submit those requests. Teach the right way to ask questions. Wording is very important. A simple change in wording, although not meaning, can have a request denied. And trust me, governments love, love, love to deny requests. This initiative would dovetail with the district's mission to have students become responsible global citizens. Both of my kiddos took government classes while in this district, and neither were taught about freedom of information in school. They were well taught at home, though. By teaching students how to find out facts rather than blindly accept government talking points, it should reap rewards down the road. I hope for a future where people at a podium are not saying, "I demand to know how much you are spending on program X," but rather, using the Freedom of Information Act, I requested and received contracts and invoices regarding program X. Please tell me why you thought spending that was a good idea. In addition to formal instruction in class, I implore any advisor of a newspaper or journalism club to delve into serious age-appropriate reporting, including utilizing freedom of information. 2, I would like this government, this Board of Ed, to be better about your openness. A few suggestions. Your Freedom of Information request form is buried deep in your website under policies. It needs to be more prominent. A lot of governments put this under a form section of their website. Next, contracts under consideration at Board of Ed meetings should be published in draft form as part of the agenda. And there should be a place on your website that catalogs all approved contracts the district is party to. I mean, even the Pentagon does this. Also, your Freedom of Information response time needs to improve. For a while, you were actually quite good, but recently not so much. After the last board meeting, I submitted a FOIA request for documents that were approved at that meeting. After a week of not receiving an acknowledgement, I contacted the district clerk, and she informed me that she had not received my request. I was told that the link to the Google form was down and I should email her directly. I did, and my request has been delayed, by something that was completely the district's doing. My request was delayed. I am chalking this up to a technology error, hopefully one time, that's been resolved and will be monitored in the future. Lastly, at regular meetings, while public comment is not required, and I thank you for allowing it, the recent crackdown on the time limit of speakers, something rarely enforced in the past, seems like you really don't want to hear from the public. While I understand the need for some parameters around public comment, the strict adherence to an arbitrary time limit, often cutting people off mid-sentence, sends the message that what we have to say is not important, that we are not important. Frequently, important ideas require more than 3 minutes to adequately convey a message. You need to be better. Have a brilliant Sunshine Week.
Thank you very much. Update on questions and comments from the previous board meeting?
We have some updates. We had 3 speakers at the last board meeting. 2 of them really didn't have any questions. The one speaker, Mr. Angeloro, had several questions regarding special education, so I reached out to our director, and I have some of the answers to some of the questions. I think his first concern was really about presenting programming information and making it clear to our parents, especially during transition from middle school to high school. There was a concern about feeling as though they hadn't received the right information or information, period, about the programming that we do. So I did reach out to our director, and she informed me that in the past, we used to do that. We would give a programming evening. It usually takes place in January. We have not been doing that, so my apologies for that. I was assured that there will be a programming presentation in the spring of 2022, and that it will discuss the full continuum of services. The other question that was asked was really more about transition from the middle school to the high school. There was a concern about how different our skills and resource rooms were. Mr. Angeloro felt that there was no set curriculum, and so the explanation I received was that at the high school, resource room and skills class is really IEP-driven, so that there is no set curriculum, and it's really based on the IEP goals that the student has. Another question that was raised was about co-teaching classes at the high school, and there was a concern that was shared that there was only co-teaching for classes that end in regents, and Mr. Angeloro wanted to know why that is, why no support for students with disabilities in classes that end in a final. And what was shared with me was that providing co-teaching for only regents, that they only provide co-teaching for regents-bearing classes. We look at the mandated requirements to earn a diploma and provide those supports in those areas. For all classes with students with disabilities, we provide support if needed through the skills or the resource room, and this is also individualized. The other question that Mr. Angeloro had was that there's no teaching assistants and skills working with less support. He made a comment about why are we working with a skeleton crew. What my understanding is that the ratio in skills classes is 15-1. The ratio calls for a special education teacher. Skills classes with 15 students are provided also with a teaching assistant, even though it's not noted on the IEP. However, in most of our skills classes, the numbers range anywhere between 5 and 10 students being taught by a special education teacher. The last one was really about why are we pushing the limits and not providing skills or resource room for our 9th and 10th grade students, but only for our 11th and 12th grade students. It's based on needs as to whether a resource room or a skills class is needed. Most of our students in grades 9 through 12 have been recommended for either a skills or a resource room. So again, that's individually driven, so that's driven by an IEP. So that's a follow-up to that.
Okay.
And then the other 2 speakers, I do not believe that they really had any, there were no questions.
I think the only question that I'll follow up with was directed at the board from Mrs. Silvera, was in regards to the masking. I'm obviously thankful that as we sit here, you can see that that regulation has been lifted, or the mandate. I will make it known that we had several email correspondence with Mrs. Silvera in discussing the mask mandate and why it was important that the Board of Education adhere and follow to that. So to answer her specific question, which was she wanted an answer from each one of us individually as to what our stance was on the mask mandate, my response was that we don't operate solely as individuals on this board. We operate as a unit, but I did let her be aware that the board had agreed, and we did submit a few weeks back. I'd have to look up the date to tell you. It is on our website, but we did agree to submit letters to the governor at the time and also to our local representatives, which I had also encouraged her in the email to do so as a parent. So that was pretty much the board's stance on that. So I just wanted to clarify for the public, because I know sometimes, as Mrs. Loaning said, the 3 minutes gets lost, But there is sometimes conversation that is taking place, and for this particular individual, we had some emails that kind of went back and forth, but I just wanted to share that with the public, so everybody was on the same page. Approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 9th, 2022 Board of Education meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 Board of Education meeting dates?
Motion.
Is there any discussion? I will just note one piece of discussion. We are actually approving this earlier than we normally do. We had it brought to our attention that perhaps it would be more beneficial that these dates were put out there a little bit sooner than our reorganization meeting in July. So we did go ahead and sit down to get these dates together, and these will be published by tomorrow on the website once it's officially approved tonight. I will also make one other additional note, which will be on the calendar moving forward starting in July, but we will also have a board retreat, which we do every single year. The board retreat this year, which will be held on September 10th. But this is a motion to approve all of these dates.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution regarding the revocation of personal registration. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have an update this evening on COVID-19 from Mrs. Rodriguez.
And I hope that it's the last one that I have to
Yes,
do.
let's hope.
So I wanted to just follow up, obviously, on March 2nd, masks became optional in schools, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we're making. So in the cafeterias, in some of our buildings, we had plexiglass that was up. That has since been removed. Parents do still have the option, if they need to, if they want the plexiglass to have it, they just need to contact their school. Some of the things that you'll notice even here in Central Valley is that during COVID, they had desks. Now they have tables, so that's a nice thing to see where students can, talk to one another. The other thing was the locker room. You'll see in the locker room that we've been using it at our high school for our sports team. We will continue with that. We have not been using the locker room to change, and I think at this point in the year, we're not going to do that, so that will begin sometime, when we come back in September. I felt it would become too much of an adjustment for students. The other thing is cleaning protocols. One of the things that you'll notice is that some of the things that we normally typically have done, we're going to reevaluate it because there was a meeting with the Commissioner of Health. She was not aware that we were still following the old protocols, which is disinfecting everything. At this point, we're just going to take a look at what we're doing and see what makes sense. I'm not saying that we're going to disband anything that we've done in the past, but we are going to reevaluate it. The other thing that you may have noticed is that we've removed some of the stickers from the tables, from the floors, just trying to get back to a sense of normacy. And then we're also going to reevaluate the water fountains, right? That's something that we shut down as a result of COVID, but again, we're not going to do anything until we really have reevaluated what's working, what's not working, and move forward. I do want to remind people that we're still under the same protocols, meaning that if you test positive for COVID, there's still that day zero that we talked about. That has not changed. You need to let the school nurse know. We had that online information that you can share. Students need to isolate for 5 calendar days, starting with day zero. You can return to school on day 6 if you're asymptomatic and you don't have a fever for 24 hours. You do not need a doctor's note or a negative COVID test to return to school. We still are required to report our numbers. So I believe yesterday,
Yes, it came out yesterday.
we shared it with our families. I just want to give you an example of where we are. On January 12th of this year, our student cases were 178, and our staff cases were 44. Today, we shared with our families, our student cases are 2, and our staff cases, we have a 1 staff member who was COVID positive. So you can see that the numbers are really driving down. One of the things I am going to discuss with the board, and if you're listening, you can certainly send me an email. I'm wondering if we should continue to share with you the numbers. because they might be just 0 or 1 or 2. That is not a requirement. I felt that it was important for the community to know where we were with our cases. We can continue to do it, but it's something that I'm going to take a look at if the numbers continue to be very, very low. And again, if you think that I should continue and you're watching, send me an email and tell me keep doing it. And other than that, I don't have anything else. Any questions?
I think the only question that I had, which could potentially be addressed with the stickers in the school, was also for the busing. So is that something that, I know our buses all had numbered pieces of paper on them for who was sitting in what seats. Is that also something that's now going to start to come off?
I think that we're going to evaluate that because
Okay.
we still have to do contact tracing, right? So if
Okay,
a
so
student
still assigned
is positive,
seats?
yeah, we.
Okay.
So they're still doing that, and that would be something that we'll reevaluate sometime in spring.
Okay.
But we still have that going, and I think it's important, just in case anybody, a student is, is positive, that you're able to say, to at least let the families know that a child was positive.
Where they were on the bus?
Yep,
Okay.
and where they were sitting on the bus.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Aside from the mask, has there been any mention, did they remove the 3-foot distance? That's, everybody's been focused on masks, there hasn't been much talk about that.
So it's been interesting because the governor has really been strong on keeping schools open, and for some of us, 6 feet is not possible, and in other places are 3 feet. So what we've said is that we're going to keep the classrooms the way that they are. Hopefully, they are 3 feet, but I cannot guarantee that every room is 3 feet apart. They have not said anything about that.
So it's still in effect, but nobody's really mentioning it? And we're-
It's still in effect, and, when we can, we will, but it is being phased out.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Our next presentation is by Dr. Hassler in regards to the math textbook for grades kindergarten to 6th.
And we'll have to get up and move to those chairs over there, because there's
Okay.
going to be a big screen in front of us.
Okay.
and We'll just be looking at the back of the screen.
Get it, move?
I don't know if you two need to, but you should see where that screen
Oh, yeah, it's
comes
right
down.
here.
It's right there. It's over here, look at it, it's huge.
Does it come down before us or after?
I'm not sure, I think you should just move away right now before anybody gets hit with the screen. So Sergey, you could probably stay in your seat and just move over. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm just gonna stay here.
I don't know, is there enough seats for you? Yeah, I don't think, you can hang out with me.
There are copies of the presentation at your seats if you want a paper copy. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity to speak about our proposal for our new K-6 math program. As I spoke at the last Board of Education meeting, there's a lot going on this time of year with budgeting, and a lot of times there are things that are being discussed in the budget which are new in the school district, and we're trying not to have the budget presentations be about also notifying the board about updates regarding curriculum or programs or things like that. So we did the presentation on special education at the last Board of Ed meeting, and we decided that we were going to do this presentation because this is something that has that's included in the budget for next year. So we wanted to kind of give the board a little bit of an overview about what our recommendations are and give the board an opportunity to ask questions and get a little bit more detail than they typically would have gotten in a standard budget presentation. Before I get started, I'm accompanied up here by Brian Jadis. A huge thank you to Brian because Brian, as a 2-5 principal, has done a significant amount of work behind the scenes on this. Brian, he oversees the district-wide math committee that I'll speak a little bit more about in a minute. He actually was involved in the original recommendation of Envision 2012 back in 2011. So Brian's been at this for a long time. So this would not have been possible without Brian. So even though I'm speaking, Brian's here because he's done a significant amount of work behind the scenes as well. So thank you very much to Brian. All right. So this is our update regarding K-6, our K-6 math program. So just a little bit of background information. For those Board of Education members that may have students in grades 11, 12, or even graduates of the school district, odds are that if they went through Monroe Woodbury from elementary school, they probably received math instruction via the Everyday Math Chicago Math program, which was our program for many, many years, back when I started teaching in the school district. In 2011, New York State adopted the Common Core standards, and at that time, Everyday Math was not fully aligned to the Common Core standards, so there was a lot of adjustments that needed to be made and supplementation that had to happen regarding that program. So the district made a decision to do a full review of various math programs that were out there that were better aligned to the Common Core standards, so that way the amount of modification and adjustments that needed to be made in Everyday Math to make it Common Core aligned didn't necessarily have to take place. So what the school district did was, at the time, we adopted Envision 2012. The rollout started in 2011, 2012 at the 2-5 level, and in 2012, 2013 at the K-1 level. Simultaneously, the middle school had the Prentice Hall math program in grade 6, and the middle school implemented the McGraw-Hill Education Glencoe math program in 2015. So fast forward to where we are now. In 2018, New York State Ed started the shift to the next-gen standards, and they did a multi-phase process in rolling out the next-gen standards. The first phase of that was raising awareness, which started in 2018, where they basically rolled out the next-gen standards and said to school districts, okay, this is going to be coming down the line. You need to become familiar with this, and you need to start looking at your curriculum and your programs to make sure that you're in full alignment with that. They finalized the New York State Next Gen Math Standards in 2019. And then the next phase of that rollout was the capacity building phase, which is where we're at right now, which is through through the 21-22 school year. The final Common Core assessments in grades 3 through 8 will be administered this spring 2022. The shift to the official next-gen standards in ELA and mathematics is going to take place with the 2023 assessments. And I should note, when I said earlier that the middle school in 6th grade implemented the McGraw-Hill Education Glencoe math program in 6th grade, 7th and 8th grade math in the middle school does not have a standard textbook that goes along with it. They follow a district-created curriculum. And the reason why that's the case is because starting in 7th grade is when you begin to get some separation of various courses. You have Math 7, you have Accelerated Math 7, in 8th grade you have Math 8, and you also have Algebra. So rather than having one standard curriculum across the board, the middle school now has branched out at the 7th and 8th grade level. So that's the reason why when we start talking about consistent programming for all students at a particular grade level, the conversation really has ended for us in Monroe Woodbury at the 6th grade level. So once we got to the place where the state was releasing the next-gen standards, and we said to ourselves, okay, the Envision program that we were previously using was aligned to the Common Core standards. Now, there's not a significant deviation between the Common Core standards and the next-gen standards. There are some shifts that take place, but it's not like there is a full departure from the current math instruction to the next-gen standards. However, that being said, the original math program was aligned to the Common Core, and similar to what I was talking about earlier with Everyday Math, we would have had to have done more significant modification of the program because it was aligned to the Common Core, both in topics and the sequencing of those topics across the school year. So we decided that because we were, sort of at this sort of intersection and evolution in standards, we were going to begin reviewing, just like we did at the end of Everyday Math and Chicago Math, other math programs to see what was out there. Combined with the 2012 version of Envision Math that we were implementing at the K-5 level was also no longer being supported by Pearson, which is now Savas, meaning they stopped printing the 2012 version. The online portion, the digital portion of that program was no longer being supported, and they were forcing everybody into the 2015 version. So right at the 2020 school year, we started having to make some shifts to the 2015 version, which was fairly the same, but not exactly the same. And again, there had to be those levels of modification that we were needing to do. So we said, you know something, we really need to explore what's out there to make sure that we're making the right instructional decisions for our students. So at the elementary level, we looked at a variety of different math programs. We looked at Illustrative, Ready New York, Eureka Math, Into Math, and Envision. We reached out to other school districts to get feedback. We visited a number of different school districts. We heard presentations from the various publishers. In fact, as I was going through and putting the presentation together, we had full presentations from Eureka Math, which is from a company called Great Minds, and Envision Math, which was Savas, on March 11th, right before the pandemic hit and we were shut down. That was when we had those two publishing companies come and present to the school district. After going through those initial programs, we had narrowed it down to those two math programs, which were sort of going to be the final programs that we were serious about, that we were going to consider, and we were going to do a pilot during the 2021 school year. Basically, they were going to furnish the school district with sets and kits of the program, and we were going to choose teachers at every single grade level in each of the various buildings to implement each of these programs to determine what our final decision was going to be. Obviously, spring of 2020, the pandemic hit, and we made a decision that we were going to postpone the pilot because of all of the things that were happening. If you remember, we were coming back remotely at the beginning of the school year, then we were in hybrid. The last thing that we wanted to do was to significantly shift math instruction because of the amount of other modifications that were being made at the time. So we made the conscientious decision in 2021 to postpone the pilot, to keep everything exactly the way that it was for that school year, and we were going to start the pilot this year in the fall of 2021 and continue it through 2022. And again, the pilot was originally going to be Eureka Math and Envision at the K-5 level. The Envision program, they were able to furnish us with all of the materials that I'll speak a little bit more about in a minute. Eureka was delayed. Obviously, there was all sorts of shipping issues and everything at the time, and they were not even going to be able to have all of the materials to us at the beginning of the school year. They said to us, you can download the materials off the internet and print them, and it ended up being a very problematic situation for us to really successfully roll out the program. So we made a decision that we were going to not move forward with the Eureka program because of all of those challenges, and we moved forward with the pilot of Envision at the K-5 level. Middle school followed a similar pathway. However, the review of this at the elementary level, because you're talking about 6 grade levels, was a much broader review than at the middle level because it was only 1 grade level and you only have 5 math teachers at that level. However, the middle school screened Illustrative, Ready New York, Eureka Math, Reveal Math 2020, and Envision. And again, they also moved forward with the pilot of Envision in grade 6 during the 21-22 school year. So, we often get asked, what does a program review actually look like? How do you choose books? How do you choose textbooks? The district-wide math committee that reviewed this consists of both general classroom teachers, special education teachers. At the elementary level, we have AIS math teachers that participate in it. We have administrators. At the secondary level, Marianne Vandermark, who is the middle school math department chair, also was with us at all of these various meetings and presentations. So it is a very large group. I mean, it's probably 30 to 40 people, I think, that are part of this group. But when you think about it, the scope of the program that we're speaking about, math instruction for all of our students K-6, that's over half of the school district, which is a very, very significant undertaking. So we wanted to make sure that we really did our due diligence in making this decision. So just to give you a little bit of an overview about what the what the program actually looks like. So the original 2012 version came with a 6-year subscription of all online service and digital licensing. This program is the same exact thing, where basically all of the printed materials that we're going to speak about also come with a full online component. It interfaces with Google Classroom. The workbooks that go along with it are also online, where the teachers can assign things digitally for kids to be able to complete, as well as all of the teacher editions are online. All of the PDFs and the anything that needs to be duplicated is available online. There are 2 versions to Envision Vision. There's a national version, which is directly aligned to the next-gen standards, and they also have a Common Core version for many. Again, they publish these at the national level, so they also maintain a Common Core version of Envision Math. We are selecting to go with the national version because it is aligned to the next-gen standards. However, New York State has their own set of New York-specific next-gen standards, where the program itself is also aligned, and what they do is they provide us with materials also specific to not just the national next-gen standards, but also the direct alignment to the New York State next-gen standards. So when the teachers go through and they're at Topic 3, Lesson 3, they know that Topic 3, Lesson 3 is aligned to standards X, Y, and Z, specific to not the national next-gen standards, but the New York State standards themselves. The materials also come with a full accompaniment of assessments. It comes with the typical assessments that our teachers currently use right now, which are the quick check and the topic tests that the teachers are using, but there's also an array of different diagnostic assessments that go along with it, as well as performance-based assessments that accompany the program. I should note at this time, though, those are not intended to be a replacement for the STAR exam. The STAR exam is going to continue to be our benchmarking assessment for students K-8. So these assessments are intended to evaluate students' progress through the curriculum and the content in this program. However, we will use the national, the STAR assessment, which is the nationally normed assessment, to track students' growth in skills using the STAR exam. That will not change. Basically, the elementary program is called Envision 2020 because they initially released it in the year 2020. The middle school version of that is Envision 2021, the 6 through 8 version of that. So again, that even though it's 2021 rather than 2020, the model in general is very much the same. The subscription comes with a 6-year online digital component to it. It is aligned to that. We're using the national version. Again, there are 2 versions. It is aligned to the New York State standards and also comes with the standard accompaniment of assessment. Now, the middle school is in a little bit of a different situation because since at the elementary level we're going from an older version of Envision to a newer version of Envision, there are many elements in the 2012-2015 version that are similar to the 2020 version. For example, the concept of the quick check assessments and the topic tests. Since the middle school is going from one program to a different program, we're going to have to sit down and look at the assessments that accompany the Envision program because the assessments that they previously used may not necessarily be directly aligned to the program. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about next steps and what the implementation and rollout of this is going to look like. So there is going to be a little bit of work related to the assessments that's going to have to happen at the 6th grade level. Anybody have any questions so far?
I think you're doing great.
Yeah. You have anything?
I didn't hear the
She said, does Brian have anything? You're doing all the talking. I said, well.
I think Dr. Hassler's doing a wonderful job, and he's giving me too much credit. We kind of have spearheaded this for the past several years together, and I will just say, just to give a plug to the teachers that are on this committee, kindergarten through 5th grade, every grade level represented. Everyone has done a great job, and some of the teachers who are doing the pilot are not even on the district-wide math committee. Mm-hmm. So we have a great representation from the whole district K-5 that helped shape this decision. So it is truly from the grassroots up decision.
No, definitely not. And honestly, like that's I believe that that's a critical component to the implementation of this, because I think the reception of the staff, if it was something that was a decision that was being made at the top versus, I mean, the staff has been integrally involved in this process. I mean, and so much so with the pilot, I mean, we've had regular meetings throughout the pilot of this to get the feedback of the staff of what their opinions are related to the experiences in the classroom. So, you know, I think that that's something that, again, is critical, and especially when they're also the ones that on a day-to-day basis are going to be utilizing this program. So their feedback is really critical in this. What's that?
I really love that you do that.
Oh, thank you. It takes time, though. I mean, obviously, this is something that we had, you know, it's been years in the making for us to be able to get at this point. And also, even in coming up with the implementation plan, we have to work with them. I mean, we have many conversations over the years about, you know, do we do a K-1, similar to when I talked to you about the rollout of the Envision 2012 program. You know, we talked about sort of the staggered rollout that we did of that at the 2-5 level and at the K-1 level. We talked about, do we do K-1, 2, 3, 4, 5? How is that going to look? I think in the end, one of the decisions to do this K-5 is because we are going from the Envision 2012, 2015 version to the 2020 version, and the belief of the staff was, we think that we have the ability to be able to do this without having to have that full tiered rollout. Combined with the level of support that we get from Savas is dwindling over the years, so it becomes every year increasingly difficult to be able to maintain that program. So in terms of the implementation, our plan is if we purchase that 6-year agreement with them, obviously there are benefits and incentives for us to move forward with that. One of them is they give us all of the teacher kits as well as various supplemental materials as part of the package with a 6-year license. If we only agree to a 1-year license, we have to purchase all of these items a la carte. The benefit is that means that we should be able to have all of the various kits for every single teacher prior to the end of the school year, which means that the teachers will have them in their hands and will have the ability to be able to go through them and prepare for the start of the school year. We can also potentially do some professional development with them in helping them unpack some of these materials, so that way they're not walking in the door in September to a brand new kit sitting on their desk that they're going to have to sift through day 1 for implementation day 2. So that's something that's obviously a priority for us. Another benefit of the pilot that we've been speaking about is having pilot teachers at, I mean, basically we have, I think, a teacher every grade level in pretty much every single building who've gone through the program in its entirety from beginning to end as a resource. So there's a large group of teachers, many of whom, teachers that were originally going to be doing Eureka, many of them agreed to take on the Envision pilot as well. So we even in some grade levels have multiple teachers that are already doing this program. Those teachers are now resources for teachers that will be taking this on for the first time next year, because they've already gone through it for a year and have a higher level of familiarity with the program. So that's also significant. So the program itself is a fairly static program. They don't have the ability to make significant modifications and changes because, right, so they do, but then what they're going to end up having to do is they're going to have to make modifications. And if the state does that, they'll do that multi-year phase-in that we were talking about. It's not like something's going to get passed over the summer and then we're going to come back in September and have to scrap the whole thing.
Yeah, plus, one of the other, responsibilities of the district-wide math committee is to look at the New York State standards and see, this is just a program, this is a resource. Mm-hmm. We operate via the standards, so if there's something in a certain grade level that's not covered in this program, then we supplement. So
And that's, I think that's exactly, that kind of leads perfectly into the next bullet, which is the summer curriculum work, where basically, as Brian said, the program itself is not our curriculum. The program, because of the way that it's designed, is a national program, and even though it does hit all of the state standards that we're talking about, in the end, we have to still develop a full scope and sequence of these are the lessons that we're hitting on, these are the standards that they're covering, this is the sequence that the topics are going to be covered in. That's the same way that we do it now at the beginning. And we've made, each year, we make tweaks and adjustments in that scope and sequence where the teachers also have essentially a calendar, a map over the course of the school year of, here's the order and the progression that we are going to be doing these various topics and how we're going to be covering them. Because the program itself is not necessarily done sequentially because it's strong in some areas on some things, and other things we need to make sure that we, cover them according to the way that New York State wants us to cover them. So even though it's a major math program, it is truly a supplement to what it is that we deem we should be doing, in alignment with the state standards.
What percentage of this program actually overlaps with
I mean, I don't remember what the exact percentage. I think that the state was required, and it's either like 90 or 95% of the next-gen standards are, I want to say that the state was given like 5% of leeway in order to be able to make additional, so the vast majority of it is covered. It's just those other nuances. But again, if we ended up going with the Common Core version, rather than the next-gen version, there may need to be more modifications and more updates that would need to be done rather than going with this program, which is the reason why originally when we started with the pilot, the version that we were looking at was that Common Core version, because it also was, they originally designed that specifically for New York, and we realized that it didn't make sense for us to go with that program because it also was inclusive of that Common Core piece that we didn't need anymore. So we decided to go with that national version and then really go through it ourselves along with they have a full accompaniment specific to New York State. So then we would go through it over the summer and come up with that scope and sequence for the staff.
So are we pushing slightly past the standards, or we just trying to?
Well, I think year one is going to be sort of going through and making sure that we're covering all of the things that we cover. But inevitably, even though the standards weren't changing, we made modifications in the scope and sequence almost annually, where, based upon, because the topics are also sort of cyclical, where, you may be counting up to a certain number at one grade level, and then you're counting up to another number at a different grade level. Because that work, is woven into the program in a variety of different areas, they may come back and they may say, you know what, we're doing a really good job of covering this topic. We can probably cut back on that, and we may need to hit this more because we're not hitting it, the way that we should be. So those tweaks and adjustments happen annually regardless. Even if the standards aren't changing, we make those adjustments. Yep. I don't know that this will be ready for the rollout over this summer. I think it's probably going to be ready September. Sure, yep. I think I covered everything related to summer curriculum.
PD.
I did?
Not yet. Professional development.
Oh, I didn't cover anything. No, I mean everything related to summer curriculum. Oh, the other thing that we're going to have to revisit our report card as well. So right now, we're kind of in a little bit of a unique situation because we do have some teachers that are teaching the older version of Envision, which our current report card is aligned to, and because the sequencing is a little bit different with the new program in the pilot classrooms, they're having to make acknowledgments in the elementary comments about, this particular area is being shaded in only for the pilot because we haven't covered that topic yet. So one of the things, once everybody goes full to this program, we are also going to have to revisit the report card and make adjustments in the report card to be aligned to the new program as well. Questions? Oh, no, well, I'll get there. Okay. Professional development, so another key component, and this has been a major theme for the staff, is that the successful rollout of the program also needs to be tied to strong professional development, where the staff can't be expected to just have the box show up at their desk along with the scope and sequence to do it. Right now at the elementary level, our teachers receive 5 days over the course of the year in professional development in reading and writing, We're cutting back on those days, and we're going to be weaving in additional days of math PD, fall and spring for the staff, as well as, again, we're talking about, are there things that we can potentially do before this school year ends to be able to support the staff? Because obviously, summer curriculum work happens over the summer, but we're not able to have access to the staff over the summer, and we want to get them as much as we can before the start of the school year. Okay, so budget, you ready? Okay. Total, what? Okay, so I don't know where Mrs. Loney was. She said, people shouldn't have to dig through for the cost of Program X, and full transparency. All-in cost of this program is going to be approximately $375,000, which is for the full 6-year site license. Basically, it covers us for 6 years. Now, the reason why we are doing this presentation now is there are a variety of different buckets where that $375,000 will live. One of those buckets is on the technology side. $150,000 of that is going to specifically for the budgeting of the technological piece of it. So later on, when Dr. VS does his presentation for the technology budget, a piece of that is going to be earmarked within his budget for that. The remaining $225,000 is also going to be in a variety of different locations, including, I have budgeted in anticipation that we were going to be rolling this program out this year. In the 21-22 budget, I earmarked, you may recall at last year's budget presentation, $60,000 in this year's budget in textbook money to be able to buy a portion of this program this year. The reason why that's important is because, as I've said in previous budget presentations, we get one-to-one textbook aid, dollar for dollar. So that $60,000 that's in this year's budget, we will get back in state aid next year to fully cover that amount. That $60,000 will also be in next year's budget as well. So that's a total of another $120,000, which again will be in district-wide textbook money for us to be able to get full textbook aid on that. Plus, the building principals also have a building level budget for math textbooks. So the remaining balance of that will be divided up between Sapphire, Smith Clove, North Main, Pine Tree, CV, and the middle school textbook lines in order to be able to cover that balance in the textbook bucket to be able to receive full state aid for that. The only other piece is going to be the professional development piece of that. The textbook and resources total is going to be approximately $350,000. The additional $25,000 will be earmarked for professional development. That's going to be put into a BOCES line. We are not going to be able to get full one-to-one aid on that because that's not a physical resource. However, we are looking to get that through BOCES, so that way it's not fully aidable, it's not fully one-to-one aidable, but we will get BOCES aid back on that money. It is a lot. It is very different. I will get that number for you. Hopefully, I might even be able to have that by the end of this meeting. I will go back and I will dig. And I will tell you, it is significantly more because, as I said to you, we did the 6-year license for the program initially. That license has since expired, and we are now on a year-to-year contract with them for the old version because we did not want to re-up with the full 6-year license because we knew that we were going to come to an end of the program. And I'll get an actual dollar amount for you, but that's the way that we're paying right now is every year we just order the books and we pay for the individual licenses and it's correct. So aside from getting the bulk deal for that, you also get we would not be able to access all of the teacher materials. The teachers are also, one of the things that I didn't mention, the teachers are also getting like manipulative kits where right now, if you walked into any elementary classroom and compared classrooms, teachers have different types of materials that they're using in terms of, number lines, base 10 blocks, like things are sort of haphazard. And the program itself comes with specific recommendations about manipulatives within the math classroom. And the teachers are all getting uniform manipulative kits within the classroom, so there are distinct incentives for us to be able to go that route. But I'll get that exact number in terms of price difference for you.
The 60,000 that you're mentioning, is that the recurring cost every year, and is that the only recurring cost?
So there will be no recurring costs for 6 years other than, where's the, I think it's this one. Included in the 6-year cost is basically, you get the teacher edition, the student books, this is grade 3, volume 1. Basically, the program is divided up into volume 1 and volume 2. This is topics 1 through 7. Volume 2 is topics, I think, 8 through 19, or 8 through 16, I believe. These are our annual purchases. Right now, we buy this for our kids every single year. With this commitment, we won't buy this for 6 years. Yes, as well as the digital copy, correct. That's exactly right. Yeah, I will get you an exact, 100%. I will get the exact, yes, sure. Oh, got it. Okay. So the question was, is there an actual cost comparison? And I will get that cost comparison. Yes, I will. I'll get that. Yep, I'll get that information for you.
No, you have to repeat it for the.
I did. I think can I get a copy of the? Yeah. Okay.
My question was the recurring cost.
And what are the recurring, okay, so the second question was, are there recurring costs that are associated with this? And not for 6 years, other than we will have a small annual purchase of, there's an additional practice book that goes along with it, which is not included in the actual program itself, and we have to buy this book as well, which the teachers have looked at this, used this, and they believe that this is a beneficial resource. So this little piece is the only thing, but in terms of what we're spending this year for the overall program, it will be significantly less.
After 6 years, we go on to a year-by-year basis, depending on.
We're going to have the same, in 6 years, we're going to have the same conversation, and we're going to have to kind of evaluate where we are. Is it looking like the state is going to be sticking with the standards? Because 6 years is a significant commitment. And again, the reason why we didn't re-up our 6-year commitment last time was because we didn't want to invest in 6 years and not see the entirety of that 6 years. So the question was, what is our plan, what is our plan at the end of 6 years? And I think it's going to be dependent upon what the status of the program is in terms of their offering support of this program, number one, and number two, what are the status of the standards? If everything is the same, then we may very well consider re-upping again, but I think it's going to be contingent upon the status of everything. Probably even before then. Yeah. The question was, will we be starting that in year 6 or year 5? We will be starting it before we get to year 6.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
There are no other questions.
Thank you.
Enjoy your parent-teacher conference. We're going to take a 2-minute break.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the Board of Education for allowing us to present to you this evening. Tonight, we're kicking off our discussion of our 2022-2023 budget, general fund budget. Tonight, we're going to talk about a general overview of the budget. I'm going to handle that part. We're going to talk about the tax cap, which is the limit on the increase in the levy, state aid, and there's some good developments, positive developments with state aid. We're going to cover buildings and grounds. Mr. Andre Rudiak, our facilities director, will handle that. I will be covering safety and security department budget. Dr. Bargar-Villas will be handling information technology budget. And finally, Ms. Dawn Russell, our transportation director, will present the transportation budget. So as I have done in the past, I like to talk about sort of the broad cost drivers and some of the developments in the budget. And every year there seems to be some new things that are happening at the state level that are affecting school districts. And initially we were talking about some of the cost drivers here that are impacting this year's budget. I think, and I've said this to the board in the past via email and in boardgrams, it's going to be a slightly higher budget-to-budget increase this year than we've seen in the past. And it's largely attributed to some of these cost drivers, these budgetary cost drivers. That's the first bullet I have here. So the first bullet is really inflationary pressures. So we're aware of higher inflation. In fact, today the federal government released a CPI report, and the CPI for the last 12 months was 7.9% February to February. The CPI related to the tax cap, which is measured by the Office of the State Controller, and again, it just has to do with a different time period, is 4.7%. So inflation is increasing and accelerating. It was initially largely due to supply chain disruptions due to COVID-19. And, obviously the war in Ukraine has affected the energy supplies and oil and just has essentially increased the inflationary pressures. It seems as though economists looked at this as transitory, but the inflation has been sticky, and it's now affecting the labor markets and other areas. We've noticed it, obviously, in the current year in areas like materials and supplies, commodity purchases, oil, natural gas, services, especially related to trades, construction trades, and finally labor. And that's even our own labor, where we're noticing it's more difficult to recruit and retain employees and staff, particularly for some of the part-time jobs that we have or variable jobs such as substitutes. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, and Ms. Russell will talk about this at length, is the increase in contract transportation budget tonight. So, and I have the use and cost underlined because not only is the cost of contract transportation going up now, and we're projected into next year, but the use or the amount of contract transportation we're buying is increasing. So that's not only supplementing our own fleet, but it's also has to do with enrollment changes, particularly for the non-public students that we service. Health insurance premium increase of 7%. So we participate in the Orange Ulster Health Plan. It's a consortium of 20 school districts that essentially self-insure. And the plan administration requested a 9.4% premium increase. The directors opted to use some fund balance that was that's there available to the consortium to lower that premium increase. But 7% for us is approaching $2 million, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.8 million. So that's just the premium increase. We also have the ordinary churn of people going from individual to family and retirees. So there's all kinds of things that are happening. One of the other things that's happening for next year is the plan has changed some of the tiering structures and the premiums associated with that. So for context here, I'm showing that we had for actives individual and family. We now have a two-person plan as well. And for context, individual plan for next year will be about $13,300, let's say. The two-person plan is $28,600, and the family plan is now $31,740 for next year. So that is the actual cost to the district, and then there's an employee contribution, so that would be less that would be the final cost to the district, the net cost. But it's still very expensive, and again, a cost driver for next year's budget. The teacher retirement system, TRS, employer contribution rate increases, so that's going up for next year. The rate increase is 9.8 to 10.3%. So for next year, every dollar that a TRS member earns, the district contributes a little more than 10 cents to the TRS system, teacher retirement system. So it's an increase that is probably going to cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would say, $750,000, something like that. So again, another big hit on the budget. The good news for the budget, good news development here, is state aid changes. And I talked about this for this year, last year at this time. For the current year was year one of the phase-in of foundation aid formula. And so for next year, it would be year two, and we're seeing an increase in our state aid. And thank goodness, based on all this kind of bad news that we're dealing with in terms of the budget. So we'll switch to the tax cap. I won't go through everything here, but for those who are not familiar with the tax cap, it's essentially a cap, a limit on the annual growth in the property taxes levied by local governments. So it's applicable not only to school districts, but to other governments in New York State. And you go through this multi-step formula, which includes some exclusions, things that are you can add back into the computation, sort of like exemptions from the cap. And then there's an override mechanism. So if a local government decides they need to or want to override that, they need more than 60% of the voters to approve a override to the cap. So for us, you begin the formula with the current year levy, which in our case is $126,606,000. There's a tax base growth factor that's applied. And for us, for next year, it's approximately 1%, a little more than 1%. And that actually is the way to tax or get at growth in the tax base. So if there's new construction, there's new development, that accounts for that. It's not intended to prevent you from taxing new improvements, and that's where that comes in. So essentially, you go through, you adjust the prior year levy by excluding or removing, subtracting the exemptions from the prior year. You get the adjusted prior year levy right here. You then apply your allowable growth factor. So that's the 2% in the 2% tax cap. And it's the lesser of 2% or the consumer price index measured by the controller. So as I said earlier, this CPI, and there's many different CPIs, but this one for the time period for the tax cap is 4.7% right now. So it's 2%. So it's the lesser of 2% or CPI. And the problem, and I've mentioned this in the past, with this formula or this methodology is for periods of low inflation, which we've basically had for the last 10 or 12 years, 2% may be okay. But if you have a prolonged period of high inflation, 7.9% is what the number just was, or even say 5%, and you're limited in your levy increase to 2%, that's a real problem, in your revenue stream. And some of the suggestions on modifications to the tax cap have been make it 2% or CPI, whichever is higher. That would take into account periods of high inflation, such as the period we're in. But we'll see where that goes. So we apply our growth factor. Again, we do some things with pilots, which are payments and low taxes. We add right here, the next significant portion is adding our coming year exclusions, which are largely due to debt service payments, less building aid, and we have our maximum allowable levy, which is for next year $130,111,288, or 2.77%. And I would just point out that for the current year, we levied at 1.5%, again below our maximum allowable levy. That was 1.88%. So it's 2 years in a row we did that. Any questions? I know that's sort of a lot to deal with, but we've seen this before. It's something, like I said, every local government is contending with. Okay, so moving on to state aid. And again, I've talked about this process for state aid. It comes out with the executive budget, the proposal. It's usually kind of a lowball number. There's some negotiations with the state legislature, and ultimately when the state budget is passed on April 1, they usually come to a number a little bit above what the governor initially proposes. I think in this case, we're probably going to largely be not stuck with, but we're going to have the sort of the same numbers that have been proposed by Governor Hochul. So up here, the first bullet I have here is we're in, next year we'd be in year 2 of a 3-year phase-in of foundation aid. And just a little background, I know you've heard this before, but foundation aid came about initially from a 1993 case from the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. So it was basically a case saying New York State's multitude of state aid programs and formulas were inadequate and inequitable. So foundation aid was designed to remedy that situation. And it was initially designed, it was put into effect in 2007, and it was supposed to have a 4-year phase-in. So 2008, the Great Recession hit, and here we are all these years later, and it still has never been fully phased in, essentially because the state couldn't afford to phase in the full formula. So now finally we're at a place where they can do that. It's actually very beneficial for us. I'm about to show you how beneficial it is for us, because foundation aid is our principal sort of general aid program. Not every district is actually getting a big increase in foundation aid. There's a 3% minimum, so there's a lot of districts in the state that are only seeing a very small increase. Other expenditure-based aid programs largely remain intact, which is good. If you remember the last 2 years, the governor had proposed collapsing or consolidating a bunch of the expenditure-based aid. So these would be like BOCES aid, transportation aid, instructional materials aid, building aid is another expenditure-based aid, private and public excess cost aid. So these are just left as is, which is good. It's better for districts. One of the problems, the questions about foundation aid has been, can the state really afford to do it? In 2007, they promised to do this. They couldn't afford it. I think the good news is the state is projecting a balanced budget through 2027. There are new receipts and revenues generated from new tax streams that the state has put into effect. So in other words, it's not entirely dependent on finite federal money, ARPA money. There are actually ongoing revenues that should support this. Contextual thing, K-12 education spending in the state budget is about 19% of the budget, so it's a fairly big piece of it. A couple of other interesting things that impact us in the executive budget proposal: requirement for all new bus purchases, school bus purchases, to be electric by 2027, which is astounding, interesting. I don't know how that's going to work, if that will pass, right? Zero emissions, and then with all school buses electric by 2035. So that may be a really heavy lift. In general, electric buses are about 3 times the cost of a conventional bus, and that's not even considering all the infrastructure that's needed to charge those electric buses. The other thing, it's sort of interesting. It's trying to get to that labor shortage issue. Retiree income waivers in effect through 2024, June 30th, 2024. So as you know, for public employees that retire, there's an earning limit of $35,000. So they're waiving that, and so that's a way to sort of bring people back into the labor market and fill some of the positions that are open in school districts. So this is the state aid report, or run. This is the report that we initially get from the state, and it's a huge report with every school district in the state, and it's organized by county. And you can see us here, and the way it's set up is it shows the current year state aid, so it's 2021-22 base aids, and the aids are foundation aid. They list universal pre-K here, UPK, although that's not part of the general fund. It's a little misleading. It's accounted for in the special aid fund. And then in the second half of the screen here, we have our projection for 22-23. And I've said this before, the caveat to the 22-23 projection is these are not set in stone. A lot of these expenditure-based state aid formulas are based on what we thought we would spend in the summer in the current year. So really, there's only a couple of formulas that you can really hang your hat on. Foundation aid is the primary one, but even that can vary. For instance, this is saying for the current year, we're going to receive $35,097,000. Last year at this time, it was about $50,000. So even that has changed a little bit, based on data that's been submitted to the state and changes in enrollment and that sort of thing. So here's a schedule that sort of shows this a little more clearly, I think. It's a budget-to-budget comparison. I think the most notable thing here is the foundation aid change. You can see the projection for next year for for our district is $44.8 million from the current year of around $35 million. And you notice here, $35,042,000. This report that I just showed you, it shows $35,097,000. So that's the change I was alluding to. So that's a $9.8 million year-to-year increase, or 28%, which is relatively large increase, especially if you consider the last, 5 or 6 years in state aid. The other aid programs are relatively stable, with the exception, I would say, of transportation aid. You see sort of a large increase here from $8.7 million to $10.3. Again, that's one of those expenditure-based aids, and it's a projection. But we're going to hear about some of the increases in transportation expenses we've been experiencing. So, the flip side, the good news of that is we receive about 70 cents for every dollar we spend in transportation. So as our expenses go up in transportation, our transportation aid will also correspondingly go up. The other thing I noticed as I sort of drilled down into this a little bit more is our transportation aid ratio increased from the current year to next year. It went from 67.5% to 70%. And aid ratios are another thing that affects state aid. And in general, if your aid ratio is going up, your district, as measured by adjusted gross income or property wealth per pupil, is relatively less wealthy compared to the rest of the state. So, there's a lot of sort of variables that go into this stuff. It's very complex. That's one of the reasons I sometimes put that cartoon up there, which tries to sort of show how complex state aid really is. Let's see, the final thing I would just point out here is, the final line is a MW state aid adjustment. So this is a local adjustment that we make to state aid, and it's largely based on historically what we've seen as far as the projection to actual. And in this case, our projection for our adjustment is to decrease that projection by about $1.3 million. In the current year budget, we projected $875,900. That was actually not enough of a reduction. So it was about 1.7. The actual was about 1.7% less than what we had, what the projection was. So I'm decreasing our state aid projection by about 2%. So the bottom line here is the budget to budget change is about $9.4 million, or 16.3%. So let's shift then to discuss the appropriation side of the budget. So we covered property taxes, this tax cap, that's the major source of revenue. State aid is the other one, and we'll move to the appropriation side of the budget. I won't spend too much time on this. This is the sort of the anatomy, the structure of a budget code, and our budget codes have a function code, an object, and a location, and program code. So 4 components to a budget code. And the first component is the function code. It has 4 characters, 4 positions. It's the functional area in the budget. So we're about to talk about buildings and grounds. That function code is 1620 here. The object code is 3 positions. It deals with sort of the object of the expenditure. So you see here it could be salaries or equipment or textbooks, 480. BOCES is 490. Location code is 2 positions. It's unique to the school district. So for our district, 01 is the high school, 2 is the middle school, 3 is North Main, and so on. And finally, the program code is also unique to the school district. And it's a way to identify certain, certain things like legal, let's say. If we could have legal expenditures, we give it a unique program code, and we could have legal expenditures in multiple areas of the budget, and we could pull it all together with the program code and see what those are. So any questions on that? Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Andre Rudiak, who's going to discuss our Buildings and Grounds budget.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me present Buildings and Grounds budget for 2022-23 school year. Buildings and Grounds Department consists of 77.5 employees that consist of maintenance, grounds, and custodial and office staff. With that said, I would like to take this opportunity thank them all for their hard work, dedication, going above and beyond every single day, supporting the district and myself. So thank you for that support. With that said, the custodial staff cleans roughly 1 million square feet nightly. That's like having 333 3,000 square feet houses or 6 3,000 square feet houses per staff member. 229 acres maintained by 8 ground staff relate to 29 acres per person. That is not in addition to preparing the playing fields for school and community sports. With over 1,260,000 square feet, our maintenance staff preserves the district investment in facilities and contributes to the education mission by ensuring facilities are comfortable, safe, and secure, which helps students, teachers, and staff to reach their potential. The projects that we completed in 2021-2022 school year. So for the high school, we installed new water heater. Library was divided in 2 separate study rooms. We replaced sea-level classroom door locks. Classroom doors can now be locked from the inside of the classrooms. Replaced floor in the weight room and installed new equipment. And together with the IT department, we installed a new sign by the main entrance to the high school. For the middle school, we installed a new boiler for the pool water. We installed a new exterior set of doors by the pool, and we replaced 7 interior doors. For Central Valley Elementary, we finished the gym floor, installed the new water softeners. We installed 4 new exterior doors, installed new condensate tank in 200 wing boiler room. Together with the IT department, we upgraded PA system, and we replaced the air conditioning unit in 500 wing computer room. For North Main, we replaced flooring in 16 classrooms, from pergo floor to the vinyl planking. We replaced the carpet floors in 3 rooms. We replaced 3 sets of exterior doors. For Smith Clove Elementary, we installed new water line from the street to the building. And again, together with the IT department, we upgraded the PA system in that building. For Pine Tree Elementary, we replaced the floor in the main office with the new vinyl planking. We renovated and painted the library, repaired the brick on the outside wall by the gym, 500 wing classrooms, and the chimney. We installed the new lights in the cafeteria for the stage, and we installed 20 new classroom doors. For Safa Elementary, we installed a new water softener. For Michael Computer Center, we replaced the boiler. For the bus garage, we painted the exterior of the pole barn building and replaced 2 heaters. For the education center, we renovated 2nd floor restrooms and the conference room. Athletic fields, improvement was done on the field number 2 and 20. The field were leveled and clay was added to eliminate issues with the standing water. Improvements to the drainage on the cross-country trail. We filled and put the fill in, the topsoil was added, and the trails were seeded. Safety and security, we installed the security vestibules at the high school, middle school, North Main, and Education Center. Proposed projects for 2022-2023 school year: middle school, paving the picnic table area outside the cafeteria, and replace pool ultraviolet light system. For North Main, replace flooring in the classrooms, and repair outside 2nd floor wall facing the loading dock. And for Central Valley Elementary, renovate the boys' gang restroom in the 400 wing, paint the wall in the gym, and replace wall panel mats. So, executive summary for 2022-2023 school year. Operation and maintenance management code is down 11,500, and the reason for that is we finished our building condition survey this year. We do not have to do that next year, so that code went down. For operation and maintenance custodial staff, custodial went up for $56,116, and the reason for that is the supply for custodials is going up every single day. As well, we lowered the code last year for uniforms for the custodians. That price also went up, and we're running out of money this year, so we add the money there for that. And we also add the money, we're buying the bottled water for 4 of our buildings for children to drink. That cost also is going up, so we add the code for that as well. On operation maintenance grounds is up $87,325. The reason for that is I'm proposing to buy a new truck with a plow and a hydraulic hookup for the salt spreader. This year we used one of our oldest trucks, and it was kind of unsafe putting that much of a weight on a truck that is rusting out. So that's partially why that code is going up. The maintenance code is going up of $191,200. The reason for that code is I'm proposing to purchase 2 maintenance trucks with plows and a maintenance body on it. One truck was obsolete a couple of months ago. It went to the point that it was not repairable anymore. And the second truck is 2008 truck. The plow doesn't work on it, and we're using every single truck for plowing our parking lots and roadways to have our buildings open. Also, our supply for electrical, plumbing, heating, carpentry, every single item that we're purchasing right now, the price on it is just skyrocketing on that. We also inherited through IT project 40 AC units for IT closets, which we have to maintain now. So in that budget code, we also put some money there to keep those units maintained and investments on them. Buildings and grounds improvement went up for $53,000. So as I previously stated, proposed projects for this coming year. I have our contractors from different venues come in, give us the proposals. To be able to do those projects, that code will have to go up $53,000. And operation and maintenance utilities is up $338,012. And the reason for that is we evaluated our cost for our electric, gas, oil, and water, sewer. So all that goes up. We also looked at, or we're paying like the sewer tax from this code, and Village of Woodbury, last year that tax went up a lot. So we did not have enough money in that code, so we have to allocate more money in that code to cover that expense as well. So total operation and maintenance is up $714,153. So this slide here pretty much does overview what I just explained it. On the left-hand side, you have the codes, like 1500 is for management, 1600 is for custodial grounds, maintenance, buildings improvements, and utilities. The next column is 2022, 2023 proposed dollar value for each code. The next column is 2021-22, which is this year's amount that is there. And then we have a percentage change. Some went down, some went up. And the last column is actually the dollar amount of the change. As you see, the change for buildings and grounds budget is going up 15.48%. On the lower part is just indicated staffing for our department, from management, custodial grounds, and maintenance. So budget goals for 2022, 2023, continue to maintain a high level of cleanliness and maintenance, maintain the capital investment in the district facilities and fields, replacement of the maintenance and custodial equipment that is no longer serviceable or reliable, and continue to conserve energy to minimize the district cost to operate. Ongoing look ahead, continue to work on the capital project, continue to use chemical-free auto scrubbers and green cleaning products, continue to be fiscally responsible for custodial supplies and overtime control. With that, any questions?
Good job. Okay, so we're going to talk just for a couple of minutes about our security safety budget, and just point out one change here. You see I have 1622 in parentheses. Last year, the functional code was 1623. We changed it to 22 because it aligns better with the state controller's chart of accounts. So I listed here operational objectives and tasks. So these are just some of the things that our safety security department does every day. I won't read through everything, but they're integral to providing support and assistance to building administration and staff in maintaining a safe, secure, and healthy school environment. They every day coordinate and support arrivals, dismissals. There's a lot of vehicular and pedestrian traffic, particularly at the middle school and the high school. They're right in the middle of that every day, managing that. Provide support and security for all sorts of events, athletic events, extracurricular events, activities, meetings. They operate the school management system, admitting people, screening people, all that sort of thing. Supervise and monitor school congregate areas. So this is something, again, that happens every day. Hallways, cafeterias, et cetera, ensuring an orderly, congenial, safe school environment conducive to learning. So, they're an important piece of making our schools conducive to learning. Actively intervene when there's an issue or problem. They monitor the school camera systems, and that's important because we're able to leverage our capabilities. One person looking at a computer screen for 12 cameras can deploy someone to a hallway or a stairwell. So that's an important component. We're always evaluating where our cameras are, how many we need, do we have appropriate coverage, and there's a piece in the budget that deals with that, additional cameras. And finally, they manage and review footage after the fact. Events happen, things happen. We want to look back and see what really happened, and they're the ones who largely do that. So just a couple of things related to the budget. Staffing changes in the works. We're proposing to hire more full-time safety officers in place of some of the part-time positions and substitute officers we've used in the past. This will provide more consistent and reliable safety coverage. We're also intend to assign some of this new full-time staff to regular weekend shifts. So that would reduce overtime and eliminates the need for certain staff to have to work on the weekends. Many times they don't want to, and we ask them to. The other thing here, equipment requests and considerations. There's a $50,000 equipment line there, and that would be for the evaluation or piloting of bathroom vape detectors. We had a little discussion at one of our prior meetings about that, and then the additional digital video cameras to supplement our existing cameras. So, this is just the schedule, the grid of budget codes, and the one thing that I forgot to mention, we've included payroll and staffing items in this budget. We will do that also with transportation, just based on some of the changes that are occurring in those areas. Otherwise, we're going to talk about the payroll or the staffing aspect of each one of these departments at our April 6th meeting. So, again, I won't go through everything. One notable change here is this health and safety salaries. Last year, that was zero. Because we outsourced the management of the department. We now have a full-time security director and a new part-time clerical support for that department, so that's why there was an increase here. The other thing I think is notable is we've reduced the overtime from $225,000 to $195,000. If we think what we think happens, we could presumably reduce that overtime line even more into the future. It's difficult, it's unpredictable, sometimes when you're going to need overtime and how much you're going to need based on activities. Our schools are very busy on the weekend and at night, so there's always a need for additional safety coverage. The other notable change here in the budget is the reduction in the security professional fees line from $661,000 to $581,000, and so that line now for next year is almost entirely about the school resource officer fees, some of the expenses associated with that program, such as equipment, and there's a few other little professional services that are in there. So otherwise, the budget-to-budget change, as you see here in the lower right-hand corner, is 1.24%, and we're proposing a budget for next year for safety of $2,177,089. And, just for context, for fun, I sort of put in the 2016-17 security budget. It was $1,122,000 approximately. So we've had a 94% increase since that time in that 6-year period. So A lot has changed. Obviously, this is incredibly important. It's largely driven by the school resource officers in our building, which are incredibly important. But to have these things, you have to spend money on it, and it impacts the budget. Finally, here in the lower left-hand corner, we're just showing our staffing levels, and that has grown. We have 1.5 administrative and clerical. We're projecting 20 full-time contracted officers, so that's an increase from the current levels. We're reducing our sub-pool. We're saying it's 12, and now we have 7 school resource officers. So any questions? Okay, great. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Vargas.
Good evening, everybody. I want to start thanking all our parents, students, support staff, board members, administrators, teachers. Last 3 years, it's been a roller coaster ride for technology. If you remember, in 2019 school year, we started with first couple of days with virtually no technology, to the year we ended fully remote with completely online. Then it was remote learning, hybrid, and then now back to in-person. And it's been a very sometimes difficult or interesting roller coaster ride. So big thank you to all who have supported us throughout this process. Technology department budget is basically a process that starts from October-November timeline. We work with the department chairs, in collaboration with department chairs, technology committee members, administrators, my colleagues, and ultimately to Mrs. Rodriguez as a superintendent. Once the budget basically put together, then we work with the business office, with Mr. Cahill's office. Some of the technology initiatives that we have working throughout this year is, one of our biggest highlight this year is our high school student technology help desk. We have about 8 consistent students who are coming in. We have 6 juniors and 2 seniors students. They're helping basically us to work with all the students who have one-to-one devices. If you remember, in 2019, we were about 4,000 devices, and then ultimately we are one-to-one now. So the devices are pretty much 3 times more. And from a staffing-wise, obviously, we didn't grow 3 times more. So we had to make sure that we take our students' help in the process. We have our MCC technology department staff also work in conjunction with them. The students are extremely bright. They have completed the online technology repair courses as well as the online privacy courses to understand the value of the data that they are seeing it. Another initiative that we are continuing is implementation of the smart flat panels. Historically, district has smart boards in place. In the last 4 years, we have replaced all the K5 buildings except Sapphire. So Central Valley, North Main, Pine Tree, and Smith Clove, they all have the new smart panels. This next year, we are looking to add Sapphire into that list as the smart panels and ultimately replace all the aging smart boards with a smart panel that will improve our teachers to teaching that implementation of technology into the curriculum. We also have some families who for a variety of different reasons, do not have the stable internet at home. So we do provide them the hotspots on an ongoing basis to make sure that the students, when they go home, they have the internet, a reliable internet access at home. Another exciting initiative that we are working with the athletic director and now the high school principal, Ms. Hawk, is esports. Esports is the fastest growing sport in the country right now. And it's just not the sport. It allows our students to basically work in collaboration of various, not just the technology, but math, science, and physics contacts. It also works along with the new computer science standards and the ISTE standards. The goal for this year is to work with the gaming club that we have and a coach and convert high school lab, computer lab C. So the students will be pretty much redesigning the lab and then work with each other and coach to say, hey, what does the esports room look like? And the goal is to, over the summer, completely revamp that room and then be ready to offer the esports starting in September. We are partnering with the Northeastern Regional Information System Center, that they have a really good experience in this area. Our students will be able to participate in online tournaments along with learning the various educational concepts. This is high school Lab C.
Is that the projected photo?
No. So, well, we don't, not yet. No, this is another piece that's coming. So the next one is robotics. Working with Dr. Hassler and high school technology department, we are looking to eventually move from Lego robotics to the VEX robotics. VEX robotics is coming along as a new initiative, but it's really the same process that we're working. This kits will allow us to use our Chromebooks along with controlling the robotics kit. So this year we are piloting one kit, and so far the feedback from teachers both teachers are really good. We will be expanding this to the 24 kits so that every single student will have their own robotic kit in the technology department when they take the various courses like computer integrated manufacturing, introduction to automation power, and principles of engineering. We continuously expanding the multi-factor authentication to improve our cybersecurity. We currently have 40 users. We are looking to add more users to make sure that we are providing secure and safe access to them. Wide area network and internet bandwidth. As we add more devices, we are continuously keeping an eye on our WAN and internet bandwidth speed. Last year, we increased our bandwidth from 1 gig to 3 gig, and all our internal networks are connected. All our internal buildings are connected to 10 gig back to the computer center, except North Main and transportation, because they have a low footprint in terms of technology. Digital den, so you will look at the picture at the bottom. This is a pilot that we are looking at North Main. This is the same room that we used to have a computer lab in North Main. So now we are all one-to-one, and also the implementation of new computer science standards will allow us basically to envision this room, what we can do in terms of changing this room. So this is really flexible seating. This allows the teachers to move around, but also allow the students to be more creative with the various technology that we will be implementing. So this is a concept. This is a drawing. Ultimately, the goal is to work over the summer to convert that room as a pilot, and then we will learn from that pilot, and the goal is to start changing the computer labs in every single building, very similar to what this picture looks like. We continuously maintaining one-to-one device in 2019 because of the board approval, because of timely approval from board, we are able to roll out all the devices very quickly. So 99.6% of our students still have the district assigned devices, and then we continue to support them. Along with various technology, it's critical to improve the data privacy and also cybersecurity. We are pretty much 4 to 5 times a year we send out the phishing campaign, and this is becoming a part of the norm for us. And as soon as we send out the campaign, we usually within a minute or two, we start receiving the emails from the teachers saying, hey, this is something going on. And really big thank you to them, because they are really part of the solution in this process. Cybersecurity is a process, and it's basically everybody's responsibility. So our failure rate is about 2.1%, and the industry standard for the failure rate is 18.8%. So we have done a really good job in this area in terms of working with all our stakeholders in this process to educating them, but also sending the phishing campaign to make sure that they're paying attention. We have also implemented mandatory cybersecurity training for all our staff members. This also now includes substitutes, and 88.5% of our staff have completed this training. And what we do, we give them a 2 weeks from the beginning of their employment with Monroe WOODBURY, and then we provide them a specific direction. And if they do not finish their mandatory cybersecurity training, we end up disabling their device, disabling their account, because without the understanding of what the cybersecurity looks like in today's world, it is dangerous to keep their access open. And so far, the response has been really amazing. Once in a while, we had to extend their another week or so, but overall, close to 90% of the staff has completed this training. We continuously updating our disaster recovery and incident response plan. This is another critical improvement from the cybersecurity side. So every even year, we improve our disaster recovery and incident response plan. And every odd year, we do our NIST assessment, which I'll talk in the next slide. This incident response plan, we also do some tabletop exercise, so that allows us to be prepared when the incident happened. And the incident could be a ransomware attack or a flooding, or a system is completely down and now all of a sudden we have to run the payroll. So this allows the technology department to be a little bit more proactive, very similar to what we do in the building, like a fire drills. We have also implemented the NIST assessment in last year. NIST is for National Institute of Standards and Technology. We have completed their assessment. The way the assessment works is at the end of each assessment, the third-party company which we do the assessment, they provide us some recommendation. And then ultimately the following year, we implement those recommendations. This allows us to be a little bit more maturing in our cyber infrastructure environment and ultimately be prepared to deal with if something else goes wrong. This year, we also completed National Cybersecurity Review. NCSR is a part of the group called MS-ISAC, which we are a member of that. MS-ISAC is a multi-state internet protection agency. It's actually a national agency that we are part of this. And this NCSR review allows us to see where we are in maturing our cyber infrastructure and what are the process that in next 3 to 5 years that we will have to take. So completing this review on every 2 years allows us to be developing a really good internal program of what does the cybersecurity means for us. We also continuously improve the process of vetting the various software or data privacy agreements and make sure that any vendor that we give out data have signed the data privacy agreement before we provide them the data. And if the vendor do not follow the data requirement, then what are the role and responsibility of the vendor? We are in a process of implementing the New York State Education Law 2D compliance tool called Symetric. This is the tool that allows us to basically track our maturity of the cyber infrastructure and are we in compliance of the Ed Law 2D. And the last piece on this one is the implementation of Central Depository System, HANUIT. As a part of this year's board goal, we have selected HANUIT, and we are in a process of rolling that system to all the end users. Preliminary recommendation for technology. There are 4 codes in technology: instructional, data processing, library media, and central printing. Dr. Hessler earlier mentioned the first code is where Dr. Hessler mentioned about the digital licenses. So that is the reason the change is a little bit higher, the increase is a little bit higher. It's about 11.33%. If we take out that 150,000 that he mentioned earlier, budget to budget increase is actually 2.89%. So it's critical to make sure that we are aligning that. Also, the question came up during Dr. Hessler's presentation of the cost of multi-year versus multi-year versus the year-to-year. Generally, in digital license world, when we do the multi-year deal, multi-year agreement, it's about 40% less. So it saves the district quite a few of money. The other important part is if we do every year the agreement, it also forces technology department to reconfigure all the system every year, one at a time. And there is a significant investment of resources go in terms of implementation of the Envision Math program. So that was another reason to make sure that we actually do the multi-year agreement with the Envision. Data processing, the code its budget to budget increase is 2.88%, very modest increase. Library media, it's actually negative 0.53%. We were able to reduce some of the databases that are not in use, but also add some more, and the cost adjustment was a little bit negative. Central printing, we continuously work with our vendor to make sure that we get the best return on the investment that we provide. We are in a process of changing the large fleet this summer. The new machines will be a little bit smaller but faster, and we are able to keep the cost to the same as last year, so this year. So the increase of budget is 0%. What does the total technology looks like in the district? So in last 3 years, so if you remember in my presentation in 18-19, this table, the total devices we had was about 3,500. Now the total device is about close to 11,000 devices. And this is just the distribution of the smart panels or smart boards versus the Apple devices, Chromebooks, wireless access point, and server. But the growth in the number of devices has been more than close to triple now. This is another data points about how many trouble tickets that we closed. So in 2019-2020 budget, we closed, at that time, we did not have the help desk for the parents and students. Also, we did not have student walk-ins. So the total tickets we closed was 2930. The 2020-2021 school year, we started, this was right at the this was the year with the COVID. So we had to open a student help desk so the parents and students can ask for the help online. And the total number of tickets we closed was about 6638. And this year, which the year is not yet over, not only we have the regular staff support tickets and student help desk, but we also have implemented student walk-ins in all our buildings. So students can bring their devices to either for high school, let's say high school student help desk, or with the TAs in all the K-8 buildings, and then TAs will try to troubleshoot that device, and if not, they'll send it to the MCC. And so far, we are at the 7203 number. And if you see the pattern here, generally when we come back in September, it's usually the higher number of tickets, and then it kind of starts kind of slowing down as the year progresses. Library media. Libraries are our flexible seating and design space. We have added, in last 4 years, we have updated libraries, Sapphire, Northwind, Smithclaw, and Pine Tree. Next year, we are looking to upgrade library at the Central Valley here. This change allows us to work collaboratively with all the students, but then it creates the collaboration of spaces with enhanced technology, and it also allows some quiet area for small group integration. Continuous on the hybrid library highlights. Big thank you to our library media specialists and clerical support. They have been on a forefront of the library loaner Chromebook device program that we started in 2021 school year, and it's been really, really successful. This highlights some of the areas. If you remember, if you notice that on the bottom right corner, this is a new library space at the high school, and basically the small working space that allows basically our students to work on their podcast, some language testing, one-to-one teachers to student meetings, and a small student work group in that area. Just to give you the idea, the total K-12 circulation that combines the physical books, e-books, and audiobooks this year is about 80,000. Last year, it was about 57,000. And the year is not over yet. I want to end this presentation with a big thank you to technology department support staff. They have been on the forefront with this, and I could not have done what we are doing without their help. So thank you all.
I have a question.
Sure.
So not really related to the budget so much, Margaret, but you talked about the phishing. Is there any concern with the student emails? Because I know they use it for College Board or ACT or...
That's a great question. We are looking into the solution to how do we bring at least our high school student into that conversation. So we are planning to expand KnowBe4. We don't have all the facts yet, but we are looking into expand it to see now we are really good with the staff. What can we do the next step for our students? So yeah, it's coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bargoff, I know in the past you've said that Chromebooks have a shelf life, and with the one-to-one ratio out there now, and a lot were pushed out at once, is there a plan in place for replacement, and how is that going to fit into the budget going forward?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the replacement plan look like? So as a district, we do have the equipment replacement plan in place. If you remember in 2019-20 school year, we have purchased at one point about 3,000 Chromebooks. What we are doing is we are now staggering those replacements of those Chromebooks. So now we have a plan in place about average 1,200 to 1,400 Chromebooks that we are replacing every year, and that is built into that. However, there will be 1 year, which is the 2026 school year, that we may have to order about 2,000 Chromebooks instead of 1,200 to 1,400 Chromebooks. So working very closely with Mr. Cahill to make sure that we're keeping an eye on that and also making sure that our equipment recycle program is continuously improving.
Is there a cost to recycle these?
In fact, well, generally yes, but we actually are able to sell some of the devices and able to get some money back. We do have a recycle program in place, but because of last few years, Chromebooks, if you remember, because of supply chain, not many districts actually got their devices. So we were good in terms of planning our purchases very well in advance to make sure that we have the devices. So the old device that we discarded, we were able to sell those devices to some of the companies or some of the companies who were looking to buy back those devices. So we are able to recover some money from that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That advances.
Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to present highlights of the 22-23 transportation budget. Starting with the school bus safety poster contest, and the poster contest for our department is two things. It shows that we are finally getting back to something that resembles normal, and that everything that we do with our children in mind. So the transportation department has faced some challenges, and we also have some new developments. As far as human resource issues, since March of 2020 to present, we lost through normal attrition and through COVID fears 40 contracted drivers and 10 substitute drivers. Another challenge that we experience daily is absenteeism of regular drivers, at approximately 15% of our drivers absent each day. The highest point was in December with the resurgence of Omicron, COVID, and so we had 31% of our drivers were absent, and at the lowest point, we average about 7%. As far as employee recruiting, in that same period of time, since March of 2020, we've only been able to replace 20 of those 50 drivers that we lost, and because we're dealing with the national driver shortage. So to combat that, we have active incentives to recruit and retain new staff. We have new driver hiring incentive. If you come and drive for Monroe Woodbury and you stay for a certain period of time, you will get an incentive, $1,500, which is very nice. We increase the rate of pay for experienced drivers using the step scale. For example, if you have so many years of experience, we have leeway to start a driver at a higher rate so we could be more competitive. We instituted a driver referral program, meaning if you're a CSEA employee and you refer somebody and they take the job here at Monroe Woodbury, they will receive a referral bonus, which is nice, $250, after the driver has been here for a period of time. We've hired a new 19A examiner trainer, Lisa. She's instrumental in helping our existing trainer to, bump up our sub pool, because at this point it's really important. We need to just keep hiring. And so this is our transportation personnel slide. And so basically, the increase here from year to year is based on contractual obligations, the drivers and monitors and staff who receive a step increase, and longevity. And this also includes our new trainer and our routing specialist. Those two positions we're bringing on this year and that had not been previously budgeted for. So that's the increase there. 3.95%. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about contract transportation cost drivers. So we have seen an increase in enrollment in our non-public yeshiva students, and they're right at the top in the light purple grid. You'll see the increase over the years since 2017-18 at 572 students to currently 1,540 students this year, and the growth is still happening, so we anticipate we'll have more at the end of the year, but we are anticipating a 20% growth for next year. Athletics. So because of the driver shortage and because we are unable to, pull our permanent drivers off of their routes home to school, we've had to enlist the help of outsourcing private contractors to cover our athletic trips. Now, the last normal athletic trip year we had was 2018-19. And in that year, we did 615 trips. and we did 169 weekend trips. Now, during the week, the routes that we can't cover, that's covered by we outsource those athletic trips. But on the weekends, we offer those to Monroe Woodbury drivers, and generally, we are able to fill those, so that's good. High-cost transportation, in the beginning of the school year, school opened. Unbeknownst to us, BOCES was the cooperative transportation we used. They weren't able, their drivers did not come back. This is, contractors who, their people were laid off, and many of them didn't return. And so we found ourselves in the beginning of the school year in a driver shortage of our own, and then not having the contractors that we rely so heavily on able to help us. So that created an increase in the number of runs covered locally. We took a couple of them back and did them in district. And then we had to rely on other contracts where the beauty of the BOCES cooperative, for those of you who are not aware, is that it gives us the ability to share the costs. We have many routes that are shared with 3 and 4 school districts. So a route that, sharing 4 ways is just the way we want to go, but if they don't have the availability, then we have to go to use other sources. So here is a pie chart with a breakdown of contract transportation code 5540, 9,255,350, 49%. Well, I'll start from the top. The Monroe Woodbury, the purple, is that's a very small portion, and that's what we're doing to ensure that if we get to the point where we don't have enough drivers, that we can use a contractor for home to school, maybe 1 to 3 routes a day as needed. Then we have McKinney-Vento transportation. We have, that's very unpredictable. We're not sure from year to year, month to month, how many displaced students we might have. The yellow is the non-public yeshiva students, and 4,505,000. Other non-publics are in the light blue, 1,333,312. Athletics that we outsource, 563,707, and high cost and COSA routes, which is basically, our students with special needs who attend programs outside the district, and that's in the green area. 25%, 2,294,975. Okay, so transportation expenditures. We, just like Andre, has already told us, we're experiencing the same. Price of parts has increased dramatically, sometimes up to 50% more. Some of the parts and supplies have extended lead time. We wait a really long time. Fuel prices have increased. We've really broken down what we're using what we used last year, because even in a hybrid situation, we still went to school 5 days a week, and we're still basically doing that same transportation, 5 days a week and a couple of other runs that we do. And so we're able to really narrow down how much fuel we're going to use. And we budgeted according to, we put a little, I'm sure we'll get through this year as long as the trend, is different than it is today. I know if anybody fueled this week, it's what's happening. So we have a global problem right now. So in the transportation expenditures, we have a budget-to-budget change of 37.7%. Mainly, the increase is 88.47% in our contract transportation code. So I really just wanted to say to all the Monroe Woodbury drivers and attendants that we could not have gotten through this really tough time if it weren't that they were such a great team They stuck in there. These have been really difficult times for us, and I just wanted to thank each and every one of them, the dispatchers, mechanics, attendants, drivers, everyone. They are the backbone of our operation, and this picture just, shows that, it's an example of their generosity. They're really, really great people. And as far as the bus purchases this year, we are not asking for new buses this year. We are in the process of downsizing our fleet. Over this past year, you've seen the surplus memos that have come asking to surplus vehicles. We've downsized the fleet from 149. Currently, we have 123 vehicles. We would like to bring it down a little bit more to 114 vehicles, but we're going to take our time with that because we want to make sure our contractors are in good form and ready to do the job that we need them to do before we surplus too many vehicles. And we want to make sure, because if a bus is laid up for any period of time, we have to be able to wait for parts. Is like the slide before I mentioned that the lead time is long on replacement parts. So we want to make sure we always have enough vehicles. So we will not be asking for a bus purchase this year. But we will use this time to start looking at infrastructure, electric buses. My assistant and I were at a workshop in Albany just last week, the week the school was closed, and we got to take a ride on an electric bus, and it's fantastic. But it purrs. So we really, really enjoyed that ride, and we learned a lot. It was just 2 days of workshops, and we learned about a lot of new technologies and things that are we want to be there. We'd love to pilot a program, even if it gets to that point. So we are really looking into those alternate fueled vehicles. And Mr. Kravitz would love to come to your house and cook for you. No, this is our employee appreciation picnic. And you know what? We didn't have a lot of room for many pictures, but it was a big deal because this was the first time that we've actually gotten it. For 2 years, the drivers were really just checking in and disappearing because we couldn't be too close to each other. So even though, masks were still on, we separated and we actually got together and did something that we love, right? So it was 2 years and it really meant a lot for us to get together. And I thank all the cabinet who came by and helped us out to celebrate our drivers and our attendants. I went through that really quick. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thanks. Yeah, it's bright, huh?
Yeah, just close the thing. Good job.
Those light bulbs are like $1,000.
Those in there? Yeah.
No, I don't know if they're 1,000, but they're like 100.
300, yeah.
They're a lot. Because one day I was looking at this, and then one of the IT people came over and they were like, thank you, Barbara.
It's just too much. It's too much to even try to retain.
One meeting for that? Oh, there's something. Wife, you're taping it over? No, she was watching online. She's been singing the audio stuff. I heard he did good.
Oh, there's like nobody in the audience.
I know.
I want to thank everyone who stayed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for the presentations. Moving on, we are on item number 13, approval of date of annual district meeting, budget vote, and election of board members. May I have a motion to accept a resolution establishing May 17th, 2022 as the date of the annual district meeting, budget vote, and election of board members?
I motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 14, may I have a motion to appoint Dawn Tauber as the chairperson and Michael Siriello as the alternate of the May 17th, 2022 budget vote and election?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the attached legal notice. May I have a motion to accept a resolution approving the legal notice related to the budget hearing and vote and election?
I motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution to nominate the 2022-2023 Orange Ulster BOCES board candidates. It is Mr. William Boss, David Eaton, and Edwin Estrada, which I will be voting on, I believe, in the first week of April. May I have a motion?
I motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Committee reports. I'll go first with policy. We had a recent meeting. We are still working on finalizing our equity policy, so we have left off that we are going back to the attorneys for a little clarification on a couple of things. We have our next meeting coming up this week on March 15th, and we're hoping to get that policy wrapped up and move on to the next. Audit, Don?
Patrick, if you want to.
Yeah, so we had a meeting on, I think it was March 1st. It was kind of a brief meeting. We talked about the negotiation with the architects that was occurring based on the contract, and explained to the group, largely had to do with the methodology of fee computation. We've resolved that, and there's two contracts are on the agenda tonight for approval. We also talked about upcoming meeting dates, and we kind of agreed we would have a meeting discussing more specifics in terms of scope of the capital project on April 27th, like we said, on or about the 27th, and then another meeting, a larger meeting, where we kind of roll out the referendum and the scope of the project on June 15th, our mid-June board meeting, where we do that. So that's really it. Andre covered renovation projects, some of the things that are happening in the buildings. There always seems to be something happening. A pipe is leaking or breaking, so we can't get some of this stuff done soon enough.
Okay, and I'll just note that our next audit meeting is next week on March 17th, and our next facilities meeting is April 27th. Dawn, for visitation?
We visited Central Valley a couple of weeks ago. I want to thank Mrs. Alt for taking us around and showing us the new library space. The minutes are available on our Board of Ed page, and our next visit is with the middle school next Tuesday.
And anything for OU BOCES?
So do you want me to defer to you to give an update as to the lobbying that we met with the elected officials the past couple of meetings?
You want me to do?
Sure.
Okay. So we were able to attend. They were virtual meetings. Typically, we will go up to Albany to lobby. And unfortunately, with COVID, we are still meeting online virtually. So we met with Mr. Brabenak, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Skoufis, and unfortunately, we did miss the meeting with Mr. Martucci, but we are going to plan a future meeting as with the forgive me, the lines have been changed as of, I believe, January of next year, right, 2023? Yep. So Mr. Martucci will now be one of the representatives for Monroe Woodbury District. So we are going to look to attempt to set up a meeting with his office as well. And I think that was it. I don't think there was anything else with OU BOCES. Okay, so thank you. That's all of our updates for the committees. Reports by student board representative. Unfortunately, Omer was unable to stay with us this evening. He did just have to leave to go take care of a family issue with his sister, so we wish him well, and he will give us an update at our next meeting later on this month. Matt, for personnel.
All right, thank you very much. Before I ask for approval of the items listed under personnel, just a few things to point out. One thing I'd like to point out are a number of retirements, some who, or one person who is in the audience. We have people who've totaled almost 200 years worth of experience here in the district. They include Kate Menzo, who is a teacher at Smith Clove, Deb Willis, who pretty much does everything we ask her to do in the school district. She's, one minute she's wearing a food service helper hat, and then she runs to Sapphire and she's a school monitor. Christine Ricker, who's our director of people personnel, who started here as a school psychologist and then was an assistant principal and has been in that role now for a number of years. Carrie Mishik has been great over at Pine Tree as a TA. Joe Valera is a custodian who's retiring. He's been at the middle school. He's one of the funnier people you'll ever meet. Donna Nemeth has been with us since 2005, which is a long time, and you just think about the number of kids that she's driven day in and day out. And Laura Gary, who's a TA in a classroom at the high school, but she's also the co-editor of the yearbook club, and she's retiring as well, so there's a loss. Happy for all of them, but with all that said, I ask for approval for the items listed under personnel.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Patrick, for business and financial?
Yeah, so I would respectfully request the approval of the items listed under the business and financial section of the agenda, and I would just like to acknowledge a donation from the Shu family of a Gemhardt flute and piccolo, so a big thank you to the Shu family for thinking of the district.
Motion.
Thank you. Motion? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the arrangement of recommended first committees on preschool education, which is 21.1 to 21.4?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reports by board and central office. Sergey?
I wanted to thank the Cabinet for a very extensive presentation on education, budget, security, grounds, and transportation. This was a tremendous amount of work. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great week.
Thank you. Dawn?
So the spring, the musicals, the plays is like one of my favorite times of the year, and I thought that tonight's performance was absolutely awesome. I can't wait to go. I recently went to North Main's production of The Lion King, which was phenomenal. Unbelievable. Unfortunately, I missed Central Valley, but I'm looking forward to Pine Tree, the middle school, and the high school the next coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, the voices, when they were warming up when we walked in, it was pretty amazing how professional the kids' voices. One thing I did want to mention, Stacy and I have been going to the BOCES meeting they're looking at a project at some point. I attended it this week, and we will be looking at a project there at some point. The exact amount, we'll still need to find out, but the way they're doing the project, it will look like a capital project to us. So we will have to go out and explain that to the public, which they said they're going to help. There'll be much more details in the future and what it involves and all that, but just to give people a heads up that, there's a project coming from BOCES. I don't think they've upgraded in 20 years. Some of it's pretty basic, roofs, leaking, things of that nature. Some of the other stuff will get a little more scrutiny. That's it.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Cabinet for their presentations. I know a tremendous amount of work goes into what you do, and I want you to know it's truly appreciated. I'd also like to thank the students for their wonderful performance. I'm really looking forward to going to see James and the Giant Peach. Yeah, I can't wait for that. And I'd like to thank Central Valley Elementary for hosting us tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I so enjoyed the high school drama presentation. I thought the energy was fantastic and very contagious. Additionally, I'd like to mention that board packets for prospective candidates are available at the Education Center to pick up. They are due back no later than April 18th.
Thank you. Margoff?
So I attended last week the play performance by North Main, Lion King Jr., amazing performance by students. Earlier today I was able to get a sneak view of Disney's Newsy at the middle school, so good luck to them, good luck to high school.
Thank you. Eric?
So I'd like to thank Bargoff. Bargoff mentioned in his presentation that there's an estimated 40% savings in the 6-year license versus the 1-year license. He's almost spot on, like spot on. I dug up, this is just for 6th grade. So First-year startup costs for sixth grade would be $14,732, one-time cost. The annual cost for 6 years is $14,560 per year, for a total cost of $87,360. So just sixth grade alone, over a 6-year span, will be $102,000. $102,000. If we purchase the 6-year license, they give us the startup items for free, and the 6-year package is $58,000, $58,947, for a total savings of $43,000 over the life of the 6 years. That's just one grade level, so times 7. So it works out to be just about 40%. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was also asked to give an eye-opening enterprises update. My last update was at the December 15th Board of Education meeting. Quick update related to professional development. We used our last superintendent conference day on January 3rd, because when we were coming back from winter break, we used that day to determine our COVID rates to make sure that we had enough staff to be able to reopen school. And that day was a professional development day for staff. So we don't have the ability to be able to do the final module training for the trauma-informed classroom program that we're providing to the teachers. There are 4 modules. We've done 3, so that is going to be something that is going to be postponed until next year. In terms of the other initiatives, each of our school implementation teams continue to meet on a regular basis. We also had a joint meeting of all of the district implementation teams along with the district-wide equity task force on January 18th. We've also had district-wide equity task force meetings on February 8th and March 8th. One of the major initiatives that has come out of this group is working on something called the Community Resource Center, and that's something that is very much in its infancy phase right now, but we've created a subcommittee to begin to dig into that further to see how we could possibly implement a program within the school district. We're also working on an eye-opening summary where we're looking to summarize the work that has been done year 1 as well as year 2 of the program, and we hope to have those items published at the end of the school year, kind of breaking down a summary of the things that we've done over the span of this work, including the various professional development that has been given to the staff, the various work that has been done by the individual implementation teams at the building level, as well as the various district-wide initiatives that the Equity Task Force has overseen. So that's something that's going to be coming out in the future. I was also asked to give just a really quick update about graduation rates, which came out a few weeks ago from the State Ed Department. Just a reminder, our 2020 graduation rate, that's the class of 2020, which is through August of that year. We had 569 students in that cohort. We had 522 graduates, and our graduation rate was 92% at the high school. The 2021 cohort, so this past year's graduating class, had 618 students in the cohort for the high school, and 574 of those students graduated for a graduation rate of 93%. The state average for 2021 was 86%. One of the things that we're monitoring very closely is our number of dropouts, specifically related to COVID. The 2020 cohort had 22 students drop out, which was about 4%. That number dropped a little bit, even though the cohort was larger in 2021. We had 18 dropouts, which is approximately 3%. So that's something internally that we're paying very close attention to. When State Ed released their press release for graduation rates a few weeks ago, one of the things that they noted in their press release was also they're monitoring very closely the impact of exempting students on Regents exams and the impact on graduation rates, because in New York State, in order to be able to get a Regents diploma, passing those Regents exams is a requirement. So because of the last 2 years of having those exempted, they're watching very closely on the impact on the graduation rate. So that's something also internally that we're monitoring.
Dr. Hassler, can I just
Sure.
to just say that we were at a conference in Albany on Monday, and we were informed by the commissioner that we are back with Regents. Regents will be provided this year. They will be administered, and so will the 3 through 8 testing.
Correct. Right.
My kids.
What?
I said, sorry, kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and we kind of anticipated that. I mean, the 3 through 8 testing starts at the end of the month. I think all of the elementary and middle school families should have gotten an email from their respective schools, just kind of alerting them to those dates. We plan on administering them on the computer. They'll be in touch in the near future with a more specific building schedule, but again, the 3 through 8 testing starts in a couple of weeks, and we haven't heard anything to the contrary. And actually, out of the commissioner's own mouth on Tuesday, she said they're planning on moving forward. So beyond that, just a quick congratulations to the cast of Frozen at CV, phenomenal job. Congratulations to the cast of Lion King at North Main, also phenomenal job last week. Good luck this weekend to the middle school with Newsies, and good luck in 2 weeks to the cast of James and the Giant Peach. Also, congratulations to our Odyssey the Mind teams. They had the regional competition last week. Congratulations in particular to the 2 middle school teams and the 1 high school team that are going to be advancing to the state finals in Syracuse in a couple of weeks. And finally, as Mrs. McCleary mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that we're celebrating Women's History Month, I'd like to acknowledge one of our own young women who's out there breaking barriers. Congratulations and a big shout out to Chloe Chambers, who competed on America's Got Talent Extreme.
Thanks, I was going to say that.
We're going to make you go last now.
So anyway, it aired earlier in this week, but she competed and she's out there breaking barriers herself. So congratulations to Chloe, way to go. She advanced to the next round. She got two yeses. She beat Simon Cowell in her slalom race, which is awesome. So congratulations, Chloe. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Patrick?
Got to follow him, huh?
Sorry.
Okay. No, I just say congratulations to the new hires on the agenda, and I just want a big thank you to my colleagues for all the work with this year's budget. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
I just want to, add on to what everybody else said. Congrats to everybody who are in the plays. We also have high school tryouts next week for spring sports, so good luck to everybody who's going to be trying out for that. Have a good night.
Thank you. Jamel?
Thank you to the Cabinet for your budget presentations today. In some situations, I think people such as myself can get nervous when seeing 7 or 8 figure numbers, but to have them broken down and see how they positively affect our students and their families is definitely beneficial. So thank you. Please enjoy your Women's Month and remember the women that helped you to get to where you are today. And for everyone, have a good night.
Thank you. Dan?
I'm just going to wish everybody a good night.
Thank you. Michael?
I just want to thank the Cabinet for all the work they put into the package that we had today. There was a lot of information in there. I did have a great visit last week with Mrs. McCleary at the BOCES in Goshen. I would say that it's really worthwhile to go there. The programs that they have and just the technology and the campus itself was fantastic to really learn more about. And I just want to thank everyone and wish you a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Elsie?
I want to congratulate all of the retirees. A special congratulations goes to Christine Ricker. It is, I don't know, I tried everything to get her not to retire, but she's going, and I just want to thank her for all the work that she's done in this district. She's a remarkable woman, so thank you. I want to congratulate our hardworking athletes who competed at states this past weekend, and good luck to 10 members of the girls and boys indoor track and field representing Monroe Woodbury at the New Balance Nationals Track and Field Championship in New York City. A special shout out to the chess team for earning an impressive second place in the Mid-Hudson Scholastic Chess League 2021-2022. A special shout out to a senior, Chris Motrakasis. Sorry, Chris. Who took third place in individuals. MW 8th grader Caitlin Thau, a flute, and Leah Talbert, clarinet, performed with the New York State Band Directors Association Honor Band, made up of the top middle school band students in the state. So congratulations to these outstanding musicians. And finally, Future Business Leaders of America is hosting a blood drive on Friday, March 11th from 7:30 to 1 p.m. in the Monroe Woodbury High School. Anyone age 16 or older may donate. Students can pick up permission slips at house offices or room 205A. Advance appointments are available, and I really do recommend that if you can donate blood, please do that. There is a shortage. And with that, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank CV for hosting us again this evening. I know it's a lot of work that goes into having everything set up, so we definitely appreciate that. So thank you for hosting us again. Thank you to the high school students who came to give us a sneak peek of James and the Giant Peach. We're looking forward to attending in a couple of weeks. Same as that has already been said, I want to thank the presenters. I know it is a tremendous amount of work, and it's not just the people that sit up here and present, but you have teams of people behind you. So please go back and thank all of them, and it was a lot to digest, but if we have any questions, we know where to find you. Congratulations to all of our teams and all of the great students that we have that are really doing amazing things. As I say all the time, I encourage you to visit our website. All of this news can be found on our website, and I was going to say, I don't know if it's possible, I'm going to put Carol and Prudence on the spot, but the video of watching Chloe Chambers is pretty amazing. So I know, I want to say it's like 14 minutes. I don't know if we can actually link that. We do have a news story on there for her, but if we can actually link the America's Got Talent portion of her, I guess, tryout, they call it, it was pretty amazing. And she is just a wonderful young lady, and I wish her the best, especially for National Women's Month. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. And I have asked for a motion to adjourn out of the public portion into an executive session for the purpose of discussing potential litigation.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.